Perfect. Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. Hopefully you can stay awake after lunch. I know it's hard to be at this symposium sometimes when there are a lot of speakers, but a little bit about my career, a little bit the coaches I have had, what I have learned from the coaches, being involved in a team, a little bit about women's hockey too. So here are the teams that I have played for. I always try to find teams that I can develop and become a better hockey player. My career started in Hammarby, one of the clubs that really had good development of younger players. Unfortunately, it's not the same now. They didn't have enough money, so it got put down, kind of restarted. But this is when I started. I was 9 years old. My brother played, so I wanted to play too. He's now a goalie coach for Frölunda, a really good team for the men's here in Sweden. My dad was my goalie coach. He was also my brother's goalie coach. So with the athletes centered for the goalies, I think it's a lot easier than the players. The goalie coach and the goalie get a lot closer, and it's easier because it's only one or two in each team. My first year, I didn't let any goals in, so I realized that I had the talent for being a goalie. We really practiced hard. I wasn't sure if this was what I wanted to do. It was already at elite level, even though I was young. I was home a lot of times saying, I'm not sure if I want to go. I almost cried every time because it was so tough. We really worked hard. But my dad always said, just go, it will get better when you get there. And so I did. But I must say it was good coaching. I had a really good goalie coach, my dad. But for the players, we had a coach that was focused on the individual. That coach maybe could have been more on the personal side because he wasn't very social. You didn't talk with him that much, but he was really good on the ice and off the ice, showing what to do. But I wished he maybe would have been more social because a lot of these kids didn't play on a high level later. Most of them, I'm 32 now, most of them are not playing anymore. So I think we kind of started too early at the elite level. We worked too hard. If you look back then, we probably have off ice for over 2 hours, practiced pretty much every day. A lot of, maybe not at the 9 years old, but I played until I think was 13. We did a lot of like heavy lifting. And now when I think back, I'm happy that I have this background. I get well trained, but maybe it was a little too early to be at that high elite level. When I was 13, I heard about women's hockey too. And I thought it would be fun to maybe play with girls and see that there are other girls in the country. So I moved to AIK, another Stockholm team. I kept playing with Hammarby and then played with the girls and the women. When I was 13 years old, I played my first final. I didn't play any of the games that season, but when we came to the final, they wanted to try to put me in the net, but I didn't do that good. I think we lost 8-0 or something. But then I moved to the boys team in AIK just to get it easier with playing both men and women. I would say in these ages, I don't think the coaches that I had was so focused on the athlete-centered. We did individual stuff, but I don't think they were very good at asking questions. It was more telling what to do. But we did a lot of individual stuff, and everyone kind of just did it without thinking, why are we doing it? And I think it's a really good, especially for goalies too. It's easy to do a drill over and over again, but why we do it and what could happen in the next step. And I think maybe for the players it's the same, but I'm more aware of the goalie side. We finally won the Swedish championship. We won the European gold. When I played in AIK, the higher people in the club thought, why should a girl take a boy's spot? So 1 year, they were trying to figure out, should a girl be able to play with the boys or not? And I had to wait the whole season, not play any games or anything, just wait for that decision that never came. So that made me move to Hammarby to play with their under 20 team. I don't know if anyone knows Leif Bork. Anyone in here? He's maybe a legend in Sweden by coaching. He coached the Swedish national team this Olympics, but he wasn't a fan of women's hockey when I played in Hammarby, because he was the one that told me that women shouldn't play with boys. So then I had to leave, because he didn't think, even though the coaches and my teammates wanted me to play, I had to leave because the higher up people said that women shouldn't play with boys. But I thought that for me, as a woman, and women's hockey wasn't that big in Sweden at that time, I felt that I had to play with boys to become a better hockey player and want to develop. I also had injuries, but nothing that. So when I was 14, I came to the national team for the first time. I think it's too early, and I'm happy that the Hockey Federation are taking more steps for women's hockey now. Before it was only the women's team, now we have a U18 team too. But a lot of girls start in the national team where they're that young because there are no steps. And that's why I think a lot of girls or women end their careers, like me, when you're not even 30. I played 4 Olympics. I have a silver and a bronze. Here's when I won the bronze, and I remember the first time when my coach asked, I was only supposed to come and learn and develop as an individual, a person. I think I had good relationship with that coach. He wanted me to become a better goalie. We had good talks, asked me a lot of questions. I had a bad body language. I get really pissed when someone scored. So he taught me how to handle that, not to show the opponent that I'm upset, just go for the next puck. But I remember I played 1 game in the group, and then I played a semifinal. And then before the bronze game, he came and said, what would happen if you fail? Like in this bronze medal game. So he said, go back, think about it, and then come back. And he wanted to see if I could handle playing a game. So I came back and I asked him, what happens if I succeed? And that's when he realized that maybe we'll give her a chance. So we played, and we won against Finland, and we probably had played hundreds of games against them and maybe won 2 or 3. But I would say coaching has a lot to do with the winning team, but you could always see something in the group and the players, the teammates, how some teams are just a winning team. I think a coach can definitely inspire and motivate players, but it has to come within them and the leaders that have taken the step to make everyone strive. 8 worlds, 2 bronze, injuries, and I was sick. I will get back to that. But we had a coach, Peter Elander. He's coaching in college. He was in North Dakota. He's now in Ohio. I would say he was the coach that made a difference in women's hockey. He was the national team coach for the Olympics 06 in 2010. And he made women's hockey more respectful, more serious. And I would say that's when he took over, the change happened in women's hockey. It wasn't so much about, I think, athlete-centered. It was a little that he was a lot about results, but at the same time, he wanted us to get better. We wanted to get more fit. We worked harder. We had individual off-ice, which have never happened before. So I think it's always a good mix between coach-centered and athlete-centered that will make a good team. And then when I graduated high school, I wanted a bigger challenge. So before the Olympics 2006, I decided to move to Malmö, where I played with the under 20 boys. I wanted to feel motivated, so I didn't do anything else than practice. So I practiced maybe 3 or 4 times a day. I realized hockey is my life. That's what I wanted to do. I also lived there 2010 because I thought it was a really good development. A club that didn't think that I was in the way. I could practice with boys at the same level. I almost played with the men's team in Malmö. They played the 2nd division then here in Sweden. But the college said no, because you can't play professional hockey before college. So it was one of my goals to play at the highest level boys as possible, but it didn't really go that far. I think it was really good development for me. It was athlete-centered in the way that I could perform, develop, feel like I meant something in the club. They wanted to focus on me and just become a better player and see that I could be as good as possible at the Olympics. Then after that year, I moved to University of Minnesota Duluth to play college hockey. It was something that I would say most European hockey players wanted to do because the league at home wasn't that good. So we were 2 Swedes at this time. It would be the college that would not only have Americans, but there were a lot of international players, both Europeans, Canadians. It's more common nowadays that there's a mix of players in a team. And I think it's really cool to have the culture, the different culture of hockey and people, getting to know yourself and becoming better player. But it was excellent hockey. I wish I could have played more than 4 years, but unfortunately you can only stay 4 years. You get a free education. Pressure, I would say I had pressure before, but at this level, you had the pressure to perform all the time. And I think that's something I especially learned from there, and I had a coach that really could help every individual to be able to perform at a high level. I think what was special with Shanna Miller, that was probably the best female coach in the world. She always inspired people to do their best. We were maybe not so engaged in how we played, and we couldn't really get involved in situations or tactics. She was the one responsible, and she has the respect. But she was a lot about the individual, get to know every people, all the feeling that you deserved to play and felt comfortable playing and could handle the pressure. Also the equality, I never experienced the equality of men and female, but at this time it was equal. You had to put the same money into men as women, and we had really good resources, and I think that's the reason why it could be more athlete-centered, because it takes a lot of time. You might need the resources for video, more assistant coaches that could help. It's a lot of responsibility if you're the only coach and the time to talk to every individual and help them develop. We got the championship. That's why we were at the president's in the White House to visit. I met my husband. I had an eating disorder. So like my first year of college, I gained the freshman 15 that it's pretty common. And it's something about a comment, not this coach, but another coach that gave me a comment about that I should maybe lose weight. And I think that's something too, like get to know individuals, know how to communicate with your players. Because that coach could have said it in a different way for me to understand that, oh, I can maybe become a better hockey player if I do this, instead of saying a comment and you take it really personal. So I'll get back to this one later. But I think what was fun and good with college is we took a lot of hockey tests, not physically, like we took tests. How do we forecheck? How do we do face-offs? So everyone really understood why we were doing stuff. I think that's a really good way to get to know, kind of understand why we're doing things. Then I moved to Russia, definitely not athlete-centered. There was a coach that decided everything, even though maybe I didn't understand most of what he said. But I wanted to try something new, see another culture, see how they are playing. You could only have 5 international players and 2 could play. So it was very kind of often my coach came and said, Kim vacation, and that meant I wasn't playing that time. That's kind of the only English he knew. Different goalie coaching for sure. I think what's interesting with goalie coaching is that you learn, even though it's very different, you always learn something from every coach. And I think it's your responsibility as a player to decide what is good for me, what would work with my plan. Money, it's kind of the only league that you can get money, a lot of money for a women player. It's getting better nowadays, but at that time it wasn't that good. We became the champion and won the European gold. But what I thought was very different here from college or in Sweden was that the coach was up here and the players were down here. We had, every time we sat in the locker room, kind of after practice or games, there was someone crying, and we never understood why. But you could see people cry and the coach being very angry. So a lot of respect and definitely no individual talks or anything. So it was a very different culture, but very interesting at the same time. I decided I was going towards the end of my career. I wanted to move home, which is not Linköping, but it's Sweden. I'm from Stockholm, but decided to come to Linköping because I thought they had a good environment for women's hockey, and they're focusing on development players. I was focused on getting a life, coming back home. SDHL, it's what the league is called in Sweden. It started a couple of years ago, and is trying to develop all the time and becoming better and better. We have a lot of international players that want to come and play in our league, especially, for example, Wakefield, they won the gold a couple of years ago with Team Canada. We're talking to American players that just won the gold. So a very attractive league that a lot of people want to come and play for. I saw a lot of different type of coaching. I think the most important thing for a coach is to have a good balance in team. You have to win the players' trust. If you're only towards the coaching, you will never win their trust. I think it's important for the players to get involved. I feel like they have a say in what you're doing. But I think it's also good that the coach is the one that decides. So I think it's a good balance to have coaching and the athlete-centered. After my career, I got asked to become the GM for the women's team. I wanted to stay in women's hockey just to try to help to make a difference for the females. I think the coaching position is probably the hardest part being a GM, to find the the perfect fit for the players. A coach that can develop. We're talking a lot about the athlete-centered. How can the coach inspire the players to become better? We're talking a lot about the players' responsibilities. I think that nowadays, compared to before, a lot of players think that the coach should do everything, when it really the players that are doing the play. So we're trying to implement that more into the team. And what Thomas talked about too is like practicing. You're doing it for yourself and not for the coach. I think I learned a lot too about being on the other side, not being a player, being one of the staff members. I wished I could have gone back to almost playing again, because I've learned a lot what you kind of see from the other side, how players behave, and I probably didn't behave great either. So I wish I could have almost done this before playing, so I know what the coaches are looking at. I think it's really tough, especially when I played with most of the girls. For me, the positive thing, it might be that I know the girls very well, so they're easier to interact. I think when I'm taking the courses you have to take becoming a coach in Sweden, I think they're great courses. And when you come up to the higher levels, you learn about how every individual are different and how you have to speak and teach that player in different ways to get most of it. And I think that's something that I've never thought of, and I will definitely take with me, that every player is very different. I think that's important for all the coaches to take with them. The roles, when I first took the GM job, I kind of only looked at the good players. I wanted the best players to win the championship, but maybe I wasn't focusing so much about the roles. You need the hardworkings, or the ones that maybe accept to be in the fourth line. You can't only have the stars. So that's something I learned too. And just the character of the player, we're looking a lot at that. Is this player here to just play and develop herself, or does she want to help the team as well? So we're looking a lot like that, and I would say that I helped the U18 national team, and the coach there, who's having the women's team now, are looking a lot into that. What players should I bring into the team? Who has the character? Who wouldn't work in a team? And I think I learned a lot about that too, like how individuals work together. We're doing a lot of mental training, because I think it helps players to perform better. I think it's important for, if a player feels that they're a good environment, they have a good life, they enjoy being at the rink, I think they'll play better. So we're trying to focus with the resources that we have to make people feel more comfortable and enjoy their life to become better hockey players. We started a hockey gymnasium 3 years ago for girls. We're the only club in Europe that have women and men on the highest level hockey gymnasium. There's 4 girls like hockey gymnasiums in the country. What we want now, I think the senior league has become a lot better. We want the junior league become even better, so we can develop our own players to come and take a spot in the women's team. Last year we had 7 juniors in the team. This year we have 2, and then we're going to have 2 open spots in the senior team to make these juniors feel like they can develop and have a goal to come up to a higher level and play for the senior team. So at this level, I think it's a lot easier to work with the individual than in the senior team. I wish we had more resources for the club and the women's team to be able to do maybe more video, have more coaches that can help, because it takes a lot of time, like I said before, to do everything by yourself. So I think this is great for us. I mean, a lot of international players cost us, and if you want to win the gold in the Swedish league, you need a lot of international players. So this is a good way for us to save money and have the chance to develop younger players. When I was close to my career, I started my own company coaching goalies. I wanted to make a difference, help others like others have helped me. Try to teach them what I've learned, and I feel like I have learned a lot by starting this company and work with younger goalies, especially the athlete-centered. I feel like that is very important in this situation, like mentoring, teaching and asking, and make them think what they're supposed to do. So I started this. I wanted to help and stay within hockey. Right now, I'm working in the Olympic Committee. We have a group in the SDHL where I help out. I helped the U18, and I worked with Peter Forsberg, and I think this was great that he helped us. He was the commentator working in the studio for the women at the Olympics, and I think it's great to have someone that good and famous to work and help women's hockey grow and be more respectful. A little women's hockey now and before. When this question I got asked a lot of times, oh, women really play hockey? This was maybe when I started to play. So a lot have happened with women's hockey. I know the US and Canada are a lot ahead of us, but women's hockey is growing in Europe and especially in Sweden right now. 2002 and 2006, even though we got asked to if we were really going to the Olympics, are we good enough? We called the blueberries because they thought we were that bad. But we won the bronze, and then we got asked again, should we really send the women's team to the 2006 Olympics? Hopefully they don't have to ask that again. I think that should be something that every women athlete in hockey should be able to do. A lot of people are asking about hits. They want people or women's hockey to have hits to get more exciting. I think it's good to have hits, and I think it's not good to have hits. It all depends. I think without the hits, you get the more fancy game. You get the players that are good with the stick handling, that it be more exciting for them to play. But women's hockey is getting more physical, I think, anyways, even though there's no hits. There are better leagues now. CWHL and WHL have started. I think it's great because before, when I played college, there was nothing after. So I think it's great that there are other leagues starting for girls to play after college too. Swedish Hockey Federation, I was talking to you about the steps. We have U18 now, and there's other steps in the program. They've realized that it's such a big step from becoming a national team player when you're 14. So I think that's really good, and now I hope they're focusing on the juniors so we can have more development and focus on developing younger players. There are more players that are talented, so women's hockey is moving forward. Before, I would say it was more a team effort. Now it's more talented people. I think it's more going to quality than quantity. When I played, and maybe a few others, that when you played before, it was a lot of practice, hard practice. You could take hours. I think it's more quality, and you don't have to work out as much or too long. Hockey in general is getting faster, same on the women's side. I think it's going from being a big and strong to a more athletic player, and definitely more individual nowadays than it was before. So I think the athlete-centered coaching, I think it's a good thing. I think you need a balance. I don't think you can be only on that side or that side. But I think from a player perspective, I think it's good to make the players feel like they're involved. When you have a coach that just follow his or her idea, it's hard to get the team with you. So I think it's important to the players can trust you and respect you and make them believe in your idea. That's something that I maybe think is the most important for a coach. So that's kind of what I have today. It's a little bit more about women's hockey. I know it's not that many that have maybe heard or coached women here, so a little more insight of the women's hockey. Yeah.